Damn. I never thought I would have to dig these old things up, but hey, here we are, 11 years later, and they've kind of become relevant again a little bit. So before I start this review, I just thought I'd share this with you guys real quick, and that is these two cute things. These are Zunes. This is the original Zune, and this is a Zune Mini. That's right, guys. I was an OG Zune user. So I just have to say, you know what? Thank you so much, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, for bringing this old thing, this old relic, back into the mainstream public eye. So thank you for that. And now, let's get to your review.
They say, Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. Such a fine eyes.
Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy, and I'm here today to review the film Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, man, that's a mouthful to say, obviously follows our favorite ragtag team of space heroes, Star-Lord Peter Quill, Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, Rocket Raccoon, and Baby Groot, the Guardians of the Galaxy, as they face new threats like this pompous race of golden people that they first help out, then they kind of screw over, and now they're out for their asses, see old faces like Nebula and Yondu, and finally get to meet Peter's long-lost father. Now, just like everyone else on the planet, I too love the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a fun and exciting space epic full of many memorable and likable characters, fantastic visuals, awesome and kick-ass action scenes, and probably the greatest soundtrack ever put together for a superhero film. I mean, when you think about Guardians of the Galaxy, you think about that soundtrack and how freaking epic it was. So needless to say, I was looking forward to seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And every time I saw a new trailer for it, the more excited I got. It looked fantastic, and May 5th could not get here any sooner. Come on, Cinco de Mayo. I've never been more excited for Cinco de Mayo in my life. And so I finally got to see the film tonight, and what did I think about it? Well, let's get into it. Right off the bat, this film looks amazing. That should go without saying. It is a true visual spectacle from beginning to end, and I could not get enough of it. My eyes just wanted to suck in more of the visuals. They are on point, very colorful. I love the bright colors and explosions, the look of the various worlds, the look of the spaceships. Again, on a visual standpoint, this film is fantastic. The soundtrack, while not as great and memorable as the first film, still had a lot of fun and catchy tunes. My favorite in the entire film is actually the first song you hear, and the song that you heard at the beginning of this video, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. That is a fine song, and it's really addicting and catchy. I fell in love with it the moment I heard it. And personally, I continue to admire and be impressed by the franchise's unique music style and taste when it comes to their song selection, introducing me to hidden gems I would have never discovered had it not been for the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. So for that, I salute you. The story and characters are still a whole lot of fun, with a lot of interesting character interactions. I personally enjoyed the interactions between Drax and this new girl named Mantis. It was really hilarious and kind of cute in its own weird way. I also liked seeing Yondu and Rocket sort of bond throughout the film. I also thought that the acting was really good, and it seemed like all the actors and actresses were having a blast in their roles, especially Dave Bautista. He was just having a hoot constantly, just laughing and having fun. I actually liked the fact that he was enjoying what he was doing, because it made me enjoy his character even more. In fact, I would say that Drax has some of the funniest lines and moments in the entire film. I mean, every character does, but when I think back to the film, I only think about the scenes with Drax. Those are the scenes that stood out to me the most and made me laugh the most. For me, there were two strong standout performances in the entire film. The first was Michael Rooker as Yondu. I loved his performance in this film, and I really liked the approach they took with this character. Not all of it, but most of it, I like what they did with him, and he really shines in this role. It's so good to see him have more screen time in this film, and they flesh his character out a bit more, and you get to see him use that really cool spear thing. Oh my god, there's an action scene in this film where he is just taking guys out left, right, and center with that thing, and it's just orgasmic. It looks incredible. That's one of the best action sequences in the entire film, by the way. The second standout performance was Kurt Russell as Peter Quill's real father. Again, you could tell that Kurt Russell was having a hoot in the role. He was having so much fun, and I felt like he truly embodied that character. I could see nobody else pulling it off better than Kurt Russell. And finally, a majority of the action sequences in this film were such a hoot to watch, and I thoroughly enjoyed seeing them. They were thrilling and very entertaining and kind of exhilarating too. The best out of all of them is the one I mentioned previously with Yondu and Rocket. That action scene is the best action scene in the entire film and worth the price of admission. I mean, I loved that action scene. I probably would watch the film again just to see that one action scene because it was that good to me. I mean, it was action-packed, well-paced, freaking hilarious, and a visual treat. Everything that you want to see in a fun popcorn action film made by Marvel. But unfortunately, and get ready to hate me, Guardians of the Galaxy fanboys and girls, I did find a lot of issues with Volume 2. More so than I did in the original film. The biggest issue I found lies in its story. It's very clunky, poorly told, and unfocused with way too much going on. There's like 2 or 3 subplots in this film, and most of them didn't really need to be told. Like, there's this whole subplot dealing with Yondu and his crew, and they perform some sort of mutiny, and we kind of get a glimpse into Yondu's past and how he's a part of this other group, and then he was banished by them. I mean, we didn't need any of that. We did not need that whole backstory with Yondu. His character would have worked without that backstory if they focused more and kind of mold Yondu into a character that's trying to change his life for the better, take a new path, and kind of bond more with Peter. That would have been a far better story than, oh yeah, I was a part of this group, then I got kicked out because I did this one thing, and now I'm trying to redeem myself. You didn't need that. And tying into Yondu's poorly executed and pointless subplot, we got another equally pointless subplot dealing with the pompous golden douchebags who show up at the beginning of the film. Now, I thought they were only going to show up in that one scene and they would never show up again. You know, just like a little side quest for the Guardians of the Galaxy to do. They finish it and then they move on. We never have to see them again. But then they just keep popping up and popping up and popping up. The first time I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. The second time I'm like, okay, why are they still here? And the third time I just got frustrated. Why are they still in this film? They serve no real purpose. They just constantly get in the way of the Guardians and kind of add like some new threat and be like this secondary antagonist, which we don't really need. There's no need for a secondary antagonist if the main antagonist is already a big enough threat. What do we need these golden people for? Now, yeah, they were funny at first, and how arrogant and smug they are is hilarious, but that wears thin after a while, and I just didn't see a point in having to bring them back and back and back. Visually, they look fantastic, but on a character level and as a threat, not so much. They wear thin really fast. Speaking of things that constantly popped up and were kind of annoying, was the constant quipping throughout the film. Now, in the first film, I thought that the quipping was well handled and it was spread out evenly throughout the film. Here, it's like almost every other minute characters are just making quips and quips and quips. And sometimes they would make quips while somebody is trying to tell something serious or be serious. Boom, another quip. And I'm like, okay, now the Marvel quipping is starting to get a bit annoying and tiresome. Let's not do so much quipping. Now and again, that's totally fine. But to have every single character constantly quipping and cracking wise and making jokes, some of the character interactions needed more time to be fully fleshed out in order for us to believe that these characters were growing closer to each other and actually forming a bond. As it stands, they never really reached that full potential. They got somewhat close, but they didn't make it all the way to the top of the peak. The biggest offenders of this are Gamora and Nebula, who I thought had a pretty interesting and dynamic relationship, but they didn't fully explore it to the extent that I thought they should have. I wanted to actually buy that they grew closer as sisters through this entire experience, but I never did. I felt like they kind of just forced it upon us, like, yeah, now their sister relationship is much stronger, but it wasn't. They don't spend a lot of time with each other. They do express their feelings to each other and open up to each other, which is nice. But it wasn't enough to make me convinced that these two have gotten closer through this experience, through this journey. Another one like that was Yondu and Peter. They did a really interesting thing when it comes to father figures for Peter, and Yondu was kind of like a father figure to him, and it would have been nice to actually explore what their relationship was like over the years. They were pretty close, but the film doesn't explore it. There's one extremely brief scene where you do see Yondu kind of teaching Peter how to shoot something, and that's it. That's all you get. And I'm like, I'm supposed to believe that they have this sort of father-son type relationship where there was no evidence in the past film or in this film to support that claim? No film. You actually have to show these two characters bonding so that we can buy this sort of father-son relationship that you're trying to establish. At the end of the day, again, it just kind of feels forced upon us. Like, yes, they have a father-son relationship. You gotta buy it now. No. Show. Don't tell me. And the last one, and probably the most upsetting in my opinion, is the relationship between Peter and Gamora. It's plateaued. I mean, it has not changed at all since the first film. It's the same type of relationship. And they're doing that whole will they, won't they end up together. And, I mean, it's safe to assume they're gonna end up together. And I just wanted to feel like they were growing closer, and I just didn't feel that at all. Their relationship felt the exact same from the first film with no progression. In fact, you could say that for all of the Guardians. Yeah, sure, they're a team, but because of their constant bickering and quarreling, I don't feel like they truly grew as a team from the first film. Hell, they felt more like a team in the first film than they do here. The climax of the film, while fun in some parts, just dragged on for far too long, and it wasn't as thrilling as I wanted it to be. I mean, this was supposed to be an epic clash, but it didn't really feel like an epic clash. There are some really great scenes in this final climactic battle, but as a whole, it's not as great as I thought it would have been. And the final issue I had with the film is that it felt way too long. I mean, this film was 2 hours and 19 minutes, and I honestly feel like it could have just been an hour and 45, and it would have been a fantastic film. It did not need to be 2 hours. And there are just some parts of the film that just drag on for far too long. But you know what, guys? Even with all its faults, I still had a blast watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's a fun, exciting, mindless popcorn superhero film, and it knows exactly what it wants to be. It's very self-aware that it is a kind of campy, cheesy, over-the-top superhero film. In fact, as I was watching the film, it kind of felt like it was an homage to the cheesy action films of the 70s and 80s. And considering that the soundtrack is primarily songs from the 70s and 80s, that makes a whole lot of sense. And for that, I will say that the film is an enjoyable one. You should definitely go check it out if you're a fan of Marvel Studios or a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. I know for a fact you'll have a fun time at least. But as always, guys, I'm not the end-all be-all opinion when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I would love to know what you guys thought about the film as well. Did you absolutely adore it? Is it one of your favorite Marvel films of all time? Do you think it surpassed the original? Or it's probably boring and dull and it pales in comparison to the original? You couldn't stand it? And let me know, what is your favorite song that was featured in both Guardians of the Galaxy and Volume 2? Comment below. Let me know. And if you'd like to be a part of the Black Critic crew and not miss out on a single awesome video on this channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, like this video if you once owned a Zune when you were younger as well, and also if you like this video. And as always, I'm Tony Watt II, jamming out to some awesome songs from the 70s and 80s as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.
The sailors say, Brandy, you're a fine